This is the art of selling travel. We're diving in to give you useful and practical tips on how to make more money starting now. We're pulling back the curtains on the best sales strategies to show travel professionals how to close more sales and create raving fans. Helping travel advisors master the art of selling travel. You can't market your way out of a selling problem. This is the art of selling travel. And here to guide you through it all, Glenda Beagle.
Well, today is such a special day. This is the favorite type of episodes that I love to do because they are a hot seat coaching call. And joining me today is the fabulous Carol. And I love that before we went on air, she just told me how nervous she is. And I kind of laugh that people get nervous in front of me because I'm probably more nervous being in front of other people. So we are on equal playing ground here. So I just want to take a moment. Carol, why don't you tell us a little bit about your business?
Okay. Well, my business is called Destination Booked, and I started pretty much when the pandemic did, maybe just a little bit before. I am completely green to travel as a whole, including as a traveler myself. Most of my travel was done with my parents when I was younger. A lot of it was to the Philippines or just, little jaunts here and there, maybe over to the States, maybe some cross-border shopping. I don't know. But I was in a full-time job that I just couldn't accept, I guess we'll say, and racking my brains for actually a few years, and travel kind of fell in my lap. It kind of tweaked my interest, and it's normally travel might tweak people's interest because they love it, because they do it so much, and they're like, maybe I should just sell it because I know what I'm doing. I'm actually quite the opposite. My purpose is that I don't know what it's like. I know it's an amazing thing, and to grasp it and to help people do it, because I know how exciting it would be for me to travel, to help others and kind of change their lives that way and help them see the world and just bring happiness to them is so big for me. And I'm excited to try something new and totally outside of my realm. I might be pushing my luck a bit, but I'm having fun. I like the journey of learning too. So yeah, I just love the fact that sometimes I tell people I sell happiness. That's what I do.
I love that. I love that because really and truly, that's what people are doing. They are traveling. Yeah. As I say, when you're selling something, you are creating a solution because people don't buy the product. They don't buy an air seat. That is not what they're buying. They're buying that transformation the air seat's going to give them. If that air seat is going to get them to Disneyland, even Disneyland or Disney World is not necessarily the ultimate transformation. It's the feelings they get. As somebody who's been to Disney a couple of times, the moment you walk through those gates and you smell, whether it's the churros in Disneyland, if you've never been to Disneyland, like the churros smell. I think that was my biggest disappointment when I went to Disney World is they had like one churro stand. I'm like, how do you not have churros everywhere? Like it just, that was,
they should be everywhere.
Right?
Yeah, that's part.
It's the smell for me, for Disney World. It was actually the great big balloons that they sell with like the Mickey head inside. And I don't know why, but it instantly connected me back to my childhood watching television shows. And that's what they had is those balloons. And so when I see them, to me, that just evokes such a memory and such an emotion and other such. So you're connecting people to these feelings, you're connecting people to these experiences, you're connecting people to these memories they have from their own childhood that they're bringing forward, but also to the memories they're making today and that they're going to carry forward. And so, to say you sell happiness, I love it. I absolutely love it. So
thank you.
What, aside from the fact that you started a travel business at the beginning of a pandemic, would you say is currently the biggest obstacle you're facing right now?
because I'm so green, I have a challenge with how to, I guess, start the sale with my clients. So it's kind of like, hey, we're interested in, you know, maybe doing an all-inclusive, and, you know, what do you recommend? And I'm like, somewhere hot and sunny with sand. It's like really fun. I don't know what to tell them. I don't know, you know, I feel like just kind of, well, where do you want to go? And I shouldn't be doing that. I feel kind of lost when they're coming to me as an expert or for advice. And I'm like, wait, no, you give me your advice, because I think you've been more places than me. And that is the truth. A lot of my clients have traveled more than I have. So that's a little, it's intimidating for me.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you something right off the hop. There is a very good chance for the better part of your career, people will have always traveled more than you. Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah. And that is just simply because, one, some of these people have always traveled, but two, some of them will tell you stories of travel that they perhaps maybe didn't do. It was actually the travel their friends did or their family did or things like that. And it might not actually be them.
Interesting.
But when I started in the travel industry, I had been on a plane like 3 different trips, I want to say. We had gone to Disneyland as a family. We had flown out to Kelowna in BC. And the only reason why we flew is my kids were really little and my mother did not want to be trapped in a car with them. So she said, I have points, let's fly. And then I had gone to Dallas on my own for a sales conference for a different company. Other than that, we did like road trips to family every summer. And one year we did a road trip down through the Dakotas, Wyoming, Montana, and back up into Alberta. So when you say I'm not very traveled, my clients are all way better traveled than I am. I was there. Like the fact that you've been to the Philippines, you knew what a red-eye flight was. You've traveled that. You know what jet lag feels like. All of those sorts of things. The rest of it, in many ways, is Googleable. And I know that there's travel advisors that are listening right now. And they're like, do not say it's Googleable. Guess what? It's Googleable. And the thing is your clients are coming to you because they don't want to Google it anymore. And the more they travel, a lot of them are like, you know what? I just don't want to do it. So I guess for the most part, what we need to start off with is there something specific that you want to sell, that you want to promote, or where are you headed in that part of your business?
Because I am familiar with it, I would say, generally speaking, my niche is multi-generation family travel. Truly, I mean, I should be so dollar focused, but I just love helping people. If I could be even broader, which I shouldn't, but I just want to help people who need me, because we all know anybody can book travel online.
Yep.
We know that you can do your own thing. This is where you want to go. Oh, I want to book it. I can. It's not like before where you couldn't do that. So I just feel like servicing anybody who needs me. I'm an empath. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but I'm just like, you need help. I want to help you. That is that's really all I want to do. It's just help people. And just that the gratitude they have from me just helping them because they needed help. It's like everything to me. So I don't have a specific, resort chain that I sell. I don't have a specific country or something that I sell, but I'm familiar with multi-generation travel and how special it could be.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at, if that helps at all. I'm lost. I told you I'm a hot mess express.
I love it. You know what? And you and I actually met at a conference in Toronto when I was speaking a couple of months ago. And you were telling me why it is that multi-gen was so important to you. Would you mind maybe sharing that a little bit?
Oh, if you don't mind tears. Oh, they're starting already. Okay. almost all the travel I did has been with family, whether it was when I was a child and I would travel with my parents and oftentimes bring my grandparents. But the last time we were supposed to travel was with my father. And it's something that, my parents, our whole family, the last few times that we've gone away, the only times that I've gone to an all-inclusive is with my parents and my husband and my kids. So multi-generation travel. And my parents would say, like, let's travel, like, let's go places together. And sometimes they would offer to pay. I have 4 kids who are now teenagers. And as they were growing up, there's lots of extracurricular activities, there's school, and I was so busy just momming. And the guilt sometimes, I'm like, I have 4 kids and they want to pay for me like that. I don't know. Like, I feel like guilty for that. But the memories that we made were priceless.
Absolutely.
And I want that for everyone. It's so important to have those memories, because I lost my father in 2019. And he was in the best health, but there were complications with his surgery. But and we were supposed to travel to Florida together, so we didn't get to do that. So it's so important to have those memories with your family, because you will cherish them forever.
I think that's what I love about travel more than any other industry, anything, is that there is these sorts of things. And the mom guilt, you can only do what you can do. You are the best mom your kids could ask for because they were given to you. And so long as you did the best you thought you could do, then you did everything right. And so, we can all play the hindsight's 2020 game. But the beauty of it is you now have that hindsight. So you can go out and you can help those other moms who think I got to do all the things, or I could never agree to this, or I could never do to that, or, whatever it is. And now you have this story you can share with them, and you can say, these are the moments you don't get back. And as a mom whose kids are now in their 20s, I can assure you, unless they're going to the NBA, it's okay to miss a basketball game here and there. And odds are good, most of you, your kids are not going to the NBA or the NHL or whatever it is, NFL, CFL, whatever. But yet we all feel so deeply that we can't let our kids miss anything. But yet there's so much of a world out there that they're missing out on because we think it's better for them to do this. Or, this, that, or the other. So you get that opportunity to be able to say, hey, I've lived it. We had these amazing experiences. My only regret is that we didn't get more of them. And, and instead of being all up inside of our own heads about it, we need to get out there and do it. So now there's a couple of things that I just want to unpack a little bit. So here's my first question for you. As somebody who just loves to help everybody, do you charge fees?
Sometimes.
Wow.
Sometimes I feel the clients out, and I consider where they come from, and I consider how fresh I am. Mm-hmm. So I say sometimes.
Okay. So what determines who pays and who doesn't?
My clients who I know will always come to me, whether because they're friends or family, and I know who refer me because people tell me, I was referred by such and such. I don't charge them fees.
Okay.
The ones who kind of give me that, you're going to work for me, that vibe. Well, you're going to have to pay me to work. Or the ones that have so many questions off the hop. I'm like, I'm going to have to do some research here. I need to charge a fee.
Okay. Do you get pushback on your fees?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Sometimes yes, and sometimes no.
Okay.
Majority of the time, yes, I guess.
Okay. So what happens when you get a pushback?
When I get a pushback, I will explain the researching that I will have to do, and that it takes time, it takes work, and nobody really works to not get paid.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them will say, okay, no problem. Here's my credit card number. And some of them will just be like, oh, okay, thank you. And that's goodbye.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Okay. Okay. So here becomes kind of my next question for you. So you feel like you are very green and untraveled in many ways. What will it take for you to consider yourself well-traveled? What does that look like?
I want to at least feel comfortable with the process at the airport. I'm still unfamiliar with, kind of navigating to like, I couldn't even tell you what happens like sequentially. Like if you book online, do you still have to, talk to someone? Is it just for luggage, or do you have to, like, when do you show the passport? Like, I don't even know clearly what happens between arriving at the airport and getting to the boarding gate. I have to laugh at myself.
So that for you is the difference between being traveled and like being green and being well-traveled?
Yes. And maybe also I'd love to be able to give them those little tips about what it's like going to an all-inclusive. Okay. Like, let's say generally maybe in the Dominican, you need to really watch more so for those timeshare pushers than in Mexico. In Mexico, you should probably be more wary of the people in the airport who want to tip, or, you hop in the wrong transfer, stuff like that. Just,
okay.
Those little general tips and tricks about traveling.
Okay. So if I could give you those, would you feel like a well-traveled person?
I feel more confident in selling travel.
Okay. Okay. So what will it take to feel well-traveled?
I'd like to go a few places too, so that I can really speak from experience.
Okay.
I do feel like it's important for me anyways, mm-hmm. just as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I probably couldn't live with myself if I'm like, oh yeah, to go to, Mexico and da-da-da, because somebody told me, and in my own head, knowing that I really don't know that or didn't experience that, like that'll eat me up inside.
Okay. So based on that, it sounds like you're never going to be well-traveled.
Ooh, ouch.
Because here's the reality. If you think of Mexico, now you're Canadian, I'm Canadian. So let's just go through in Mexico alone. What are the sun destinations that the charter companies sell? They have Los Cabo, okay. Puerto Vallarta, Mazatlan, Huatulco, Ixtapa. You've got Cancun, the Mayan. And of course, the Mayan is broke down. Are they Playa del Carmen area or the Tulum area? They're going up to the Puerto Morales area. So you suddenly have all of those for one country. And mm-hmm. that's provided they don't then, if they go into Huatulco, that they don't want to go to Oaxaca, or that maybe they want to add in Acapulco, or are they wanting to do a cruise? So therefore the cruise is possibly going to hit things differently. If you go to Los Cabo, you've got you've got Cabo San Lucas, and you've got San Jose del Cabo, and then you've got the corridor. So you start adding all it. Yeah, I see you getting a little bit like you're like, I just want to throw up. You go to the Dominican, you've got Puerto Plata, you've got Punta Cana, you've got Santo Domingo, you've got La Romana. we start to add all these up. In Canada, we have flights to go to Cuba. We have Cayo Santa Maria, Cayo Coco, Holguin, Veradero. I can't even think of them all. It's been a while since I've done Cuba. But the thing is, though, is that if we tell ourselves that we have to do all these things, that we have to be the ones that have experienced it, we're never going to get there. So what?
Okay, so
yeah, go ahead.
Here's my question. In the moment when you have a client saying, "Hey, Carol, do you think I should probably visit Cayo Coco or should I go to Santa Maria?" And why? I don't want my answer to always be, "Oh, hang on, like let me just get back to you on that." I feel like I understand that I can totally Google all the information that I would like to share with them, but I don't want my answer to always be, "Oh, let me get back to you on that." Like constant, because that's what would happen.
So here's the deal. Odds are good your clients are going to say, should I go to Cayo Coco or Cayo Santa Maria or whichever ones you gave? The and why is typically not what your clients are going to say. That's what we hear.
Mm-hmm.
So the best salespeople actually don't really give answers. So they will say, both are great destinations. I've heard good things about both. What's drawing you to those destinations as a whole? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes I've had clients that will say, "Oh, I really want to go to Cayo Santa Maria." And I'm like, "Oh, that's fabulous." They're like, "Yeah, my friend said stay at this hotel." I'm like, "Great. Can I just ask, what is it that drew you to that destination? Like, why did you pick Cayo Santa Maria?" "Oh, because I really want to go see Havana." Okay, but Havana's not really close. Like, we could maybe set you up with a Cuban airline flight in between, but that's not really something I'm comfortable with. So why is it that you've chosen this? "Oh, like I want to see Havana. Like that is the number one reason I'm going." So instead of trying to figure out if it's A or B, it's now C, because they should be going to Veradero, because that's where it's going to be. Or they have to then be aware that it's not just a 2 or 3 hour bus up to Havana from where they're at. So we always want, when we hear the and why, they didn't say that, but yet that's the question you need to ask them. Nolan Burris, I've said this story many times. I heard him speak years ago, and he had a client who came in and said, "I want to go to Waikiki." And he said, a lot of travel advisors just go clickety, click, click, click. "Great. I can get you this price, this hotel, this flight. Do you want to book it?" And he said, and so many of us, that's what they do. But take that pause for a moment and say, "That's a great destination. Can I ask why it is that you chose that?" And for that particular client, she said, "Oh, because I want to ride horses on Waikiki Beach." And he's like, "Yeah, that's not going to happen. All the years I've been going there, I've never seen horse poop on the beach. Like that is not what you're going to find in Waikiki." And so you have to get to the core of what it is that drew them to that destination. Because again, you're dealing in multi-generation. When your clients are asking you about Cuba, don't immediately go into this hotel versus this hotel. You're in multi-generation. Is everybody the natural children of every passenger type thing? Because if you've got custody arrangements and things like that, there's a lot of laws in terms of the paperwork and other such that you need to have in order to go to Cuba. So before we ever get into talking about hotels and things like that, we need to know why they've chosen that, what it is that they want to do while they're there, and who it is that's going to be going. Because before we go down too many rabbit trails of setting up and trying to figure out which hotel or which this or which that, we need to make sure it's the right destination to begin with. Same sort of thing. If you have clients that they want to go to Cancun, well, that's beautiful. I love it there. What is it about Cancun that draws your attention? "Oh, I want to do like the most romantic sunset photos." Well, that's probably better done on the West Coast. The sunsets are still nice on the East Coast, but on the West Coast, they are just next level.
But how did you know that? I don't know that. How do you know these things? How did you know that you can't on the Waikiki with the horse and the poop? Like, how do you know this stuff?
It is just one of those things that just comes with time. But the thing is if you don't ask them the questions, then you don't know to look into it. Because if they say the only reason I'm going to destination X is because I want to do activity A, you need to make sure activity A is possibility. Because when it came to a client wanting to go, and I can't remember if it was Kyle Santa Maria, Kyle Coco, or wherever it was, they said to me, but our ultimate is that we have to go to Havana. And I'm like, I'm going to have to look into that for you because I don't think we can do that. So the first time that happened, I had to take the time and look it up. And I'm like, okay, so this is how you can do it. This is how much it's going to cost, but you need to know this is a Cuban airline. Like I didn't even actually know there was Cuban Airlines, to be honest with you at the time, but it's a Cuban airline that you have to fly. And they're just, you're following the Cuban government's regulations on air safety and things like that. So it's a personal choice. Needless to say, they did not go to that destination. They went to Veradero instead because Havana was such a critical piece for them. So the first time you encounter it, 100% you're going to have to look it up. There's no shame in that game. And as a client, I would rather somebody looked it up. But when you know more details, you're able to focus in on that detail to let them know that's what you want to double check. And so when they say, well, I want to ride horses on Waikiki Beach, that sounds great. But you know what? I better just double check where all we can get horses because I'm not sure what that looks like. And if that's why you're going, I don't want to sell you something that's not going to give you what you're actually after. So the same sort of thing, because this is what you'll hear a lot of times too, is people will take the multi-generation, things like that. And they'll say, okay, what resort is the best for us? Let me get the details. Let me know what it is that you guys want to do. What is it you want to experience? What are the ages of everybody? Because if they say they're taking a 3-year-old and they want the 3-year-old to experience swimming in the ocean, well, guess what? You're going to need to do a whole next level of research on which resorts are going to give you the best beaches to have a 3-year-old. Now, after 15 plus years of being in the travel industry, even having this conversation and like giving hypotheticals on like ching, 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 like things are just popping in my head. I'm like, okay, so the Hard Rock in the Mayan, they have these fabulous enclosed reefs and the other such. And I'm like, okay, an Occidental Grand. I don't think that's what they call it anymore, but that's what it was called back in the day. So like my radar starts going off. It comes over time and it comes as a whole progression of a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of knowledge. Here's the deal. I have attended so many supplier trainings. I have attended so many destination trainings. I have attended so many everything trainings. Nothing actually sticks until I've been through a scenario with a client. That's when it sticks. Because then it has a relevance. So then your brain's like, hang on, file that one. That one goes here. Because otherwise you are just getting such a flood of information. I was actually cleaning my basement the other day and I don't know if you guys do it down in the East there or not, but up here years ago, we used to go, and of course, actually, no, you're started since pandemic. So you probably don't even have this reference, but all the tour operators used to do their sun launch. Back in the day, we used to sit down and it was awesome because they would feed us supper. Sometimes there was a trade show. And then you spent the next hour to 2 hours going through page by page of the brochure where the tour rep gave us the insider knowledge on the hotels. And they would say, okay, so this hotel, this one, it has a really good this one is not great for that. Oh, I saw this one in person. You're not going to like that, or take off a full star off this one. I get that we sell it as a 4.5, sell it as a 3.5. Like, so that was something that we did over and over and over again, each and every year. I will actually, I'll have to go grab a picture of my brochures because then they all have like the little flags down the side so that I can just flip to them. And that basically became my travel Bible, if you will. And so that's what I did. I did not travel to all of these destinations, but I attended those sessions so that I could get the updated. The best part is at the beginning of the year, at least in the agency that I owned and in the agency I worked for prior to that, the day of our presentation, we used to sit down and go through last year's notes and transpose them over. And then we would just update them if the rep gave us something different, because they would tell us when it was most recently renovated. They would tell us, oh, we've changed our room block. Because that's the other thing is, not only do you have, let's say we're talking about the Grand Palladium Katana. Well, it was sold by this tour operator. Now it's sold by this tour operator. And this room category is what this room category used to be called. Like, you will make yourself insane. You think you need to know it all before you can ever tell a client, because it's going to be in the process of actually doing it, actually having those conversations, that it's going to start to stick. So now here's the next thing. When you're dealing with that multi-generation family, you yourself are a family of 6 just in your own immediate core, right? So you've got 4 kids. Traditional hotel rooms just on their own in an all-inclusive space, probably not going to automatically allow for 6 people in a room. So before we go again too far down the rabbit trails, you need to know what those configurations look like. Are grandparents willing to, at least on paper, have some of those kids come and stay in their room? What are the ages of each of those teenagers? Because in some resorts, they'll be considered adults. In other resorts, they'll be considered teenagers. In other resorts, they'll be considered kids. What all does that look like? How can you rework those configurations? Because while what on paper looks like a good opportunity for family A may be the worst opportunity for family B. And so it doesn't matter how well you know it for family A, we're now talking about family B. So that's why you want to get to the core of those details. Who is it that you're doing this for? What do all those configurations look like? Are you needing any special sort of documentation? Because that's something that the family will need to be aware of as well. Because there's a lot of, I don't remember what the actual term for it was that they now have. Anyways, basically, but it's a blended family or a mixed family, yours, mine, and ours, or yours, and yours, whatever that case is. So they need to be aware of what that looks like. Now, when we're dealing with that, let's say you have a mom who is dating somebody new or has recently married somebody, and she has 12-year-old daughters. Do they want to be in the bed next to the new man in her life? Or do they want to be in a separate room that's attached? So all of those conversations are going to completely change out which hotel. So no matter how good you know the beach or how well you know this, that, or the other, you might not be able to use that one because you can't guarantee that guaranteed adjoining or the guaranteed, the suite or things like that. So that's where those details are what it is that you're actually researching. And you're going to find that then from those, you're going to work it back and make sure you're doing the right thing.
Right.
So, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Do you feel even less traveled now?
No, I feel better. I feel like I guess I'm not alone. And you know what? A lot of, fellow travel advisors, kind of say the same thing. And like, Carol, like, nobody has traveled the whole world. No, you can't expect that. But maybe it's just me. Maybe I guarantee
it is not just you.
Okay.
I guarantee it is not just
Perfect.
You. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little story. So for those that know me, of course, I have sold travel for more than 15 years. I don't market that I sell travel. But I still have had a few clients. I have like my absolute most favoriteest clients ever. They do a couple of river cruises a year. They're leaving this week on a river cruise again. So I adore them too much to ever give them up. So I still sell travel for them. Anyhow, just finalizing everything. Of course, there's a whole screw up with their documents. Their documents got sent back because they had a wrong address. They didn't confirm there was all these different sorts of things in a COVID world. This was trips that were booked back in 2018, 2019. They're just going out now. Anyhow, so there's screw up documents have been sent back. So I've got electronic documents, which is unfortunate because these are like top tier with this river cruise company clients. And I'm like, here's your paper. But anyhow, looking at something, just doing one last final check. and something pops up that the longest to be considered fully vaccinated, you can't have had your vaccine more than 270 days prior. Well, these clients are in their 80s. So the moment things opened, they got vaccinated. Well, now we're in a panic. I've just reached out to them. They're going to be calling me back. They've got to go find their documents to figure out when they got their booster to make sure that they're not at more than 270 days, because while they are shot up and boosted, it might be more than 270 days from the time they need to travel. Well, what the heck? So now, even though they're like, so as much as travel advisors were like, you need to just be fully vaccinated. That's what I told him. I've been doing this a long time. I have sold a lot of travel in my career. And here we are 5 days out from departure. And I'm like, holy crap. I thought I had everything figured out. And then this warning just popped up and I'm like, holy crap, and so there's these things that there's always going to be something that changes it, something that shifts it up. For the most part, what existed 2 years ago before the pandemic is not guaranteed to exist now. There's a lot of travel advisors who knew their favorite cafe on the corner in this town in Italy. Like, you just got to go there because they make the best gelato, whatever it is. There's no guarantees in a post-pandemic world that business still exists. There is no guarantees that anything is still there. So in which case, you, for so many ways, are in the exact same position as anybody else. So now I promised you I would help you to feel more well-traveled. So when you check in online, if you are checking baggage, you must go to the counter to check your baggage. But if you are on an international flight, you will have to show your passport to somebody. So whether that is somebody at the counter or somebody at the gate, they are going to want to double check your passport.
Okay.
I did not necessarily know that until a couple of years ago, because I'm a little bit of a heavy packer, but I'm like, I'm going to do this on carry-on. And I was flying to Los Angeles for a conference. And I was totally in my own world. And then I hear final page for Glenda Beagle. And I'm like,
oh no,
what's going on? So I go up there and she's like, I need to see your passport. I'm like, oh, well, I checked in online. She's like, you need to show it every time. So now I'm like, okay, so we just do that. And it's been much better. Now, as for the timeshare people, I'm going to give you a bonus one at the end about views. Okay. But here's my timeshare one. This is what I would tell people, because if you make it too daunting or too overwhelming or too scary, they don't want to do it. So you need to say it in a way, one, that they're going to remember. So that's the beauty of a story. But two, you also want to keep it light and airy. So when you come into the airports, again, these are the charters. If you're coming in on an American flight or things like that, I believe they still have the same timeshares, but I do think their exit's a little bit smoother than the one that the Canadian charters come into, particularly in Cancun. But here's what I would do. I would say, okay, so when you get off the plane, you're going to go through customs and immigration. You've got to have your form already filled out. Then you're going to go through, you're going to pick up your baggage. Once you have your baggage, you're going to go to the street lights because you have to push a button. If it goes green, you get to go. If it's red, they're going to open up your bag right in front of everybody. So put the bras and underwear on the bottom. Otherwise, they're on top, they spill out and somebody's got to pick up your bra and it's really uncomfortable. Anyhow.
Wow. Yeah.
So from there, because we know you don't have anything in your bags, they're going to close up your bags. They're going to tell you to have a wonderful vacation and off you go. So what you're going to do then is you're going to make your way through the shark tank. I call it the shark tank because that's where all the timeshare sharks are. Your ride will be waiting for you outside. Anybody inside the tank is a timeshare shark. So when you get outside and you can see the sunshine, that is where you will find your ride.
Okay.
Okay. And I tell them they will have your name on a piece of paper. They will have the sign. Again, this is for the Canadians, the charter company. They will show you what that is. Or if you want to book them a private transfer, because, in a post-pandemic world, I'm not really excited to get on a bus of 45 people that I don't know. On the airplanes, I know they've got really good air circulation and things like that. Not so cool with it. And frankly, I don't want to get there Canadians love their Bahias and their Palladiums and things like that. And if you have a company like Transat or other such where they have those giant contracts with them, they will send an entire bus to that hotel. If you can get on a private transfer, you can go straight there as soon as you're through security. So you're not waiting for everybody else, because without fail, somebody's got to go stop for beer. And so then your van is just going to go straight there. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to beat that bus to the front desk, which means you can be checked in and having a survey cell long before anybody else from that bus is arriving and piling into that lobby. So that's what I usually do for my clients. But yeah, I use the terminology Shark Tank. You want to go all the way through the Shark Tank, because then when people are in there and they're starting to question, they look around, the amount of clients that came back to me and they're like, I was so confused. And then I remembered I wasn't supposed to be in the Shark Tank. So I went outside. And so it just becomes this thing that they're like, oh, okay. And it keeps it from being too, it keeps the fear of it away, if you will, because I'm like, you want to go through the Shark Tank. And I always say it with a smile and, with a little bit of when you get on the other side of the Shark Tank, that's where you're going to find the ride. So if you don't see sunshine, you're still in the Shark Tank, go outside. And so then that's when my people will be like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so it also saves the calls later. I paid extra on my trip. What was that? I'm like, did you buy a timeshare? I legit had somebody call up and demand I refund them because they had to pay for their trip twice. And as it turns out, it's because they bought a timeshare while they were in Mexico.
Oh,
I'm like, no, I told you not to do that while you were there. This is on you. But anyhow, and I am going to give you one for the views, because the big question is what view do I get? So here is how I explain views. When you are on a beachfront, the water is right in front of you. Does not mean you can see it, but you can hear it. You can probably smell it and taste it if you wanted to, but there might be trees in front. Ocean front, the ocean's right there, and bam, it's right there in front of you. Ocean view. Yeah, it's there. There could be some trees in front. It could be, a little bit of this, that, the other, but the partial ocean view, that's where they're going to get you. So the partial ocean view is when you have a partner, the two of you go into the bathroom together. One of you climbs onto the back of the toilet and the other one has to hold your ankles, because you're going to crawl about halfway out the window. And so long as you see a sliver of blue, that, my friend, can be a partial ocean view.
It's an ocean view.
Partial ocean view. And so, and the difference between a garden view and a resort view, or a garden view and a standard view, is a garden view means that they put the palm tree in front of the dumpster, and the standard view means they didn't bother putting the palm tree there. So when you do it that way, it just kind of softens people a little bit. It also helps to reestablish some of their expectations, particularly when you're dealing with the large resorts or things like that, which when you're in multi-generation family, a lot of that isn't necessarily going to be the top end luxury boutique hotels, which if you're listening and that's who your ideal client is, that's great. In the conversations I've had with Carol offline as well, I know that she's probably a little bit more in, like the AM resorts or the Bahias or things like of that nature, just based on who her type of clientele is. But when you explain it that way, you also reestablish their expectations, because if they happen to buy a partial ocean view and they didn't actually have to stand on the back of the toilet, any sliver of blue became a bonus. I remember being at one resort in Cabo and we went down for supper, and they were not my clients, but they were mad as heck at their travel agent. And they're like, can you believe our travel agent? And I happened to know that they were in the room next to us. And I said, well, why? They sold us an ocean view and this is all we got, and it's terrible. And I said, did they sell you an ocean view or partial? And they're like, well, partial, but it's the same thing. I'm like, no. Because from the balcony, we could still see the ocean. I said, so that is a partial. And so then when I told them that technically they should actually be having to stand on the back of their toilet while the other one held the feet and they'd take turns looking, I said, that's really a partial ocean view. So your travel agent actually got you a pretty good view. And by the time I was done, they're like, oh, okay, great. And it was but their expectations were not in line with what they were going to be getting. And so long as you can keep your clients' expectations in check with what it is that they're actually going to get. I love to, again, most partial ocean views, they don't actually have to stand on the back of the toilet. But anytime they don't have to stand on the back of the toilet, but they don't have a direct bam right in front of you ocean view on a partial ocean view, they feel like they won. So, you know, we've under promised and over delivered. But if I tell them, oh yeah, you'll totally be able to see the ocean, just won't be able to see all of it, that's going to set me up for failure. Whereas if I tell them when you stand on the back of the toilet, anything they do get to see, they're going to be like, oh, wow, our room was even better than you promised. And so it's making sure that you have the appropriate expectations, because if you overpromise and underdeliver, that's when you end up with clients who aren't happy with you. So knowing what it looks like to go through the Shark Tank, knowing who you have to talk to with your passport, do you feel better traveled?
I do.
Right?
I do. I'm ready to go now.
So do you see that the idea of being better traveled so that you can sell more to people has nothing to do with actually anything other than your own mindset?
Yeah. That's true.
So I will encourage, especially for the new ones, if you have a local tour rep who does any sort of brochure, again, this is probably more for the Canadians, but if they do go through their brochure and give you those resort tips and things like that, that is a great session to sit in on, because if you don't already have it, it is a good one to add to. Now, you will hear an upcoming episode about FAMs, where I'm going to be talking about FAMs, making sure you get the ROI. I do not believe everybody should be allowed to FAM just for the sake of being able to FAM. And I think you're kind of giving me a little bit of a weird eye. Do you know what a FAM is, first off?
Yes, I do. I actually do.
Okay. Because not everybody does. And I'm like, you know, this is that curse of the insider language that we all know what FAMs are, but new to the industry sometimes doesn't, or things like that. But when you've got to really look at your business and figure out what it is, again, who is your ideal audience? You don't have to be specific to a region. You have to be specific to a solution. So in your case, you are working with those multi-generation to create those memories, because you in yourself know how precious they are. While yes, a region will help you because you'll be able to just narrow in on it so well and know it so well, your confidence will go up. I do not believe you have to be specific to that region. And especially as we make our way out of this pandemic, and as somebody who's been around for a while, you know, we've had Zika and we've had we've had all different sorts of things that went around, H1N1, you know, we've had different parts of the Caribbean shut down, you know, nobody send your people to this country, but you can send them to this way, you know, so if you're only specific to one country, you might be limiting yourself a little bit. So I really think as we come out of this pandemic, while you need to be niched, the niche has to be on the solution, who specifically you're helping. And then the product is not the solution. The solution is the transformation. So while it's an all-inclusive that a lot of your clients want and things like that, it's not necessarily specific to Mexico or specifically to Jamaica or specifically to the Dominican, or, you know, you're going to get to know a lot of those, but pick one to start with and know it so incredibly well that you can sell it in your sleep. Okay. Yeah. Then move on to the next one. And so there's different things about it. And it might just be, I know up here in Canada, there is a great Facebook group for Jamaica travel agents, for travel advisors who sell Jamaica. The Jamaican Tourist Board's done a great job of doing that so that you can get different questions asked and answered and things like that. But at the same time, don't stay stuck in learner mode. You know where those resources are so that you can go to them when you have questions. But for those who feel like they need to know everything and they need to constantly learn, create a time block in your schedule and limit it. And so maybe that is 2 hours per week, you are going to learn destination or product knowledge. So what does that look like? Are you going to be attending a webinar, or are you going to be taking a specialist course? And, it might be a case of at the beginning of each week, you look at it and say, okay, I don't have any webinars booked this week, so I'm going to search out a specialist course. Those courses are for your knowledge. They're probably going to tell you, post it on your social, things like that. Your clients actually don't care. Just like I don't go into the doctor's office and ask to see all of his certificates. I just want to know he knows what he's talking about. And so, or that he can solve my problem. Because when I go into a general practitioner to solve a specific problem that's going to require a surgeon, I know that he's going to help me find the right surgeon, and they're still going to be in consultation and things like that. And they're going to have, so they're still going to be a part of that. So it's not about how you can market yourself as that specialist. It's just about your own personal knowledge. Now, focus that knowledge based on the type of travel you want to sell, the type of destinations you want to sell. And then once you have that locked, then you can expand into further or things like that. Or if you have somebody that you're like, okay, I have this family of 25. They really want to know about Jamaica. I've got a little bit of time to put together the proposal for them. I don't really know anything about Jamaica. Tap some resources and just say, okay, but before you go down the rabbit trail, set a clock, set a timer, only allow that 2 hours or the 90 minutes or whatever it is, and go all in on that information for that time. But if you feel like you got to keep looking for it, you could go down a rabbit trail and be there for 2-3 weeks, and you're not going to
be on that trail.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been there. I took that trail a few times.
Yeah. And see, the beauty of that trail is that it's just going to spin you round and round and round and bring you back up. And you'd be like, I still know nothing. But that's why I say, before you go down those trails, it's okay to wait until you have a client that wants to know more about that. Because again, as I said earlier, when you're working on it for a very specific client, answering a very specific question, it's going to file away differently inside of your brain. Because if it's just general knowledge, just for your own sake of knowledge, it gets really surface level, if you will, and nothing really sinks in. Yes, you'll have a certificate at the end. You'll have this, that, or the other, but it's not going to truly file in until you have a client question about it. So,
makes sense.
Do you have any other questions today?
I'm going to say no, because I probably have too many and I can't hone in on one.
Oh, goodness. You know what? But that's all part of it. And that happens. And, I have spent years studying this and learning this, and really and truly the best experiences, the best knowledge has come from the actual doing. I'm going to give you an example. I remember years ago, oh goodness, what was it? Probably 2012. I think it was Christmas of 2012. I had come into the office because I had actually taken a day off. It was shocking. But I came into my office and one of my agents came to me and she said, this client called in and he wants his record locator for his flight home at Christmas time, but I can't find it. And so I said to her, okay, well, great. Did you book it? And she's like, I know I quoted it, but I don't know if he ever called back to book it. And I said, okay, we'll pull it through the systems. No, his name didn't come up. We don't have anything booked for those dates. So I said to her, okay. And I fully admit this client was very gruff sounding on the phone. He was very gruff. He had a bit of, I don't know if an accent is the right way to say it, but he had a kind of like a dialect, a way of speaking. And add to that, he worked in the oil field. So, and he was a bit older. So he's on a cell phone. So he kind of yells to begin with. He's in the oil patch. So he's not sure he's getting signal, all of these different sorts of things. He was a very intimidating person to talk to on the phone. Mm-hmm. He did come into our office. I had been working with him for several months. He finally came into our office one day. He said hello. And the moment I heard hello, I knew exactly who he was. I didn't even know he was supposed to be coming in the office. It just, his voice was that recognizable, and he's loud and all of these different sorts of things. So anyhow, I said to her, you need to call him and ask him if we booked it. And she's like, no. And I looked at her and I said, yes. And she said, no. And I said, yes. And she said, no. I said, yes. And then she said, no. And then my mom face may have come out and I said, yes, you will. So she shook like a leaf. she called him. And by this point, almost an hour had been spent searching files, and other advisors had been involved. The office had basically ground to a halt, because the idea of trying to, like, if we miss something, what was that going to cost us? Like on the 23rd of December to fly a client at our, like, holy crap on a cracker. Yeah. Anyhow, so she calls him and he's like, and she said, I can't seem to find your file. Did you book that with us, or did you book it with the airline direct? He's like, oh, I booked it with the airline direct. Don't you have my codes? And she's like, no, we don't actually have that. So anyway, she got off the phone. She was angry with me that I had made her do that. Like, I mean, spit and nails angry. And so what I said to her is, I said, we have spent over an hour, combined resources of everybody in the office. 3.5 hours was spent that I'm aware of, because I came in partway through this. And a 5-minute phone call eliminated all of that stress. I said, so from here on out, I guarantee you the next time he calls and it does not immediately twig with you, you will say, no problem. Let me look that up. Who did you book that with? Which one of our agents did you book that with? Or did you book it with the airline direct? I said, and suddenly we will go from 3.5 hours of resources down to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And had she not had that experience, I guarantee she never would have asked him in the future. And so it is through the most uncomfortable things in our lives. It is through the most uncomfortable conversations, the most uncomfortable experiences, that we will absolutely have the biggest growth. And that, as I said, was December 23rd of 2012. And it was such an impactful moment that I remember the day. And I wasn't even the one that had to make the call. I was the one that was, yes, you will. I remember that moment because that was a little tense in the office. But the thing is there was so much growth that came out of that, because we go from because we can tell ourselves all sorts of stories. Because even for myself, in this conversation, I said to you, I can't even imagine what that's going to cost. Like what it would have cost us to fly him from Fort Mac to the Maritimes on the 23rd of December, if we even could have found him a flight.
Right. And
lo and behold, here he had booked with the airline direct. And so, because he did that from time to time, if he decided he was going to do this after hours or whatever, because at that point, nobody had my number outside of the office hours. Like I had things rerouted, but yeah. So it was one of those things that's where you learn. And that's how it files in the drawers and other such, because you can do all the learning, you can do all the training, but if you don't have something for it to tie and connect back to in your brain, it's just going to fall out, because there's only so much room for so many files up there.
That's so true.
But
so true.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I am over the moon that you agreed to this. Carol and I were having a conversation in the DMs on Instagram. So if you guys are out there, follow me on Art of Selling Travel on Instagram, because it is actually me in those DMs, and we do have conversations. And Carol was answering one of the poll stickers or other such, and I can't even remember what specifically it was. And she asked a question. And I was about to answer it. And I said, you know what? Would you like to come on a coaching call? And she was like, oh my goodness, yes. And I was like, yay, I love to do coaching calls. Like, these are my favorite. If I could do coaching calls all day, every day, and never have to do anything else for the rest of my life, I would be the happiest person on the world, because this is what I love. I love to see the ahas in people's faces. And I know what it felt like sitting at those desks, having the client inquiries and feeling like I was not enough. I didn't know enough. I didn't have enough. And then the moments when I realized it's already all within me, or it's those stories that I would hear the other travel advisors beside me telling. And then, like I said, you have your Shark Tank story now, and people remember Shark Tank because of the TV show as well. Like, Shark Tank's a word that they hear. And then the standing on the back of the toilet, you're going to remember that one. And when you tell them in those story type things, people are going to remember. And what I remember about those stories is when I tell them is the people that smile and laugh.
Yeah.
And the ones that perhaps maybe have experienced that, they're like, oh, is that what that was called? Yeah, because we've been there, And so then afterwards, and so they come back, they're like, oh, that Shark Tank was real busy last time, and they will start to repeat those words back to me, which means that I know that it sunk in. I know that it meant something to them and that it connected with them. And then I know that when they pass that story on to somebody else, it's going to help somebody else as well. And so that's why it's so important. But there you go. Who knew that in an hour you would become a world traveler?
Look at me now.
But I want to leave that as kind of one of our final thoughts here is just simply, it's not actually about doing certain things. It's about thinking about it differently. And so when you verbalize what it actually looks like to be a world traveler, because I guarantee you there are people that are listening that are like, wait, I've never been to the Philippines. I've never been to Florida. I've never done this. And you don't think you're well-traveled? I thought I was well-traveled. I haven't done these things. And so,
right.
It's going to make them be like, wait, what? So when we start to say what it is that it feels like to be a world traveler, and they're like, wait, I know who I have to give my passport to. I am a world traveler. But everybody has a different perspective of what that means. And as we come out of this pandemic or shift into the next wave, as they're talking about here, what does that look like? Because what the processes are of different things, we can't get too hung up on process from that perspective, because it's going to constantly evolve. It's going to constantly change. So what it looks like in the airport today, it may not look like that in the airport in time to come. Pre 9/11, going to the airport looked very different than it did 10 days later, things like that. And so that's why we need to verbalize the things that are holding us back, because when we can recognize them, then we can also recognize the fact that, wait, that might not be the way it is, or that's what will keep us in those perpetual motions of, I'm going to go back. I'm not a world traveler anymore because they just changed the rules at the airport. So before we go here, I would love to know what is on your bucket list. Where do you want to go?
Bora Bora.
Oh, right.
Like who doesn't? Whose bucket list is it not on? But yeah, no, I definitely, that's something that me and my husband said that we are going to do in our lifetime. And we will.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. I love it. And I love to follow you on Instagram. So I will be there to see all those pictures. I can't wait. And thank you. Just thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Glenda, for all your knowledge. It's so helpful. And you're so easy to talk to. And I'm blessed to have done this with you today. So
well, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for listening. We'll see you next time.